160 Studios, Joe Mullings, and with me today I've got a dear friend and one of the rock stars in search that we've been together for, 20 plus years we've known each other, Mike Bitar. Mike, welcome.
Morning, buddy. How are you?
That's good to be here. So Mike and I are going to talk about some things that I think I will give us experts on, careers in the world of search. And my specialty has been in the health tech, med tech, life sciences world. And Mike, why don't you share with our audience a little bit about your background, how long you've been in it, and your area of expertise?
Yeah, so just quickly, Joe, my background out of school, I have an accounting degree, and I dabbled in the world of Ernst & Young and Big Six at that time, public accounting. But I got into consumer and the whole consumer industry right after that with Nabisco and Bic, and I absolutely loved the interaction that I had inside my organizations, but with the consumer and with the brand. So it was just a great industry for me. But I also early on got a chance to be part of a number of meetings and strategic direction conversations around people inside those organizations. I wasn't setting the bar at that time. I was still really early in my career, but I was getting the osmosis going on. Mm-hmm. And that led me to get into the world of search. So that was 23 years ago. And fast forward, a lot has changed, and a lot has stayed the same too. So it's been a good ride. I know you're 29 years in now, right?
29. Well, 32, but 29 and owning my own firm. Yeah. It's funny, Mike, when you and I got into the search business, people didn't come right out of college and want to do search. Generally, search, it was something that you got into as a transition. You were either fired, laid off, divorced, but you were, generally speaking, in a transitory state. And that's different than today.
It's unbelievably different, and I think the mentality of the business professional and the heavy desire to be involved in consultative type interactions has led to that movement that you're talking about. And so people are looking at search as a career path, not as a transition, which is great to see. I think it's really exciting when you have really talented people that are looking at our industry going, you know what? There is not a resource in a company any more powerful than their people. How do I affect that? Not just within my organization, but what kind of roles are out there for me to really affect that broadly across an industry or across multiple industries? So that transition has definitely happened aggressively in the last 5 to 7 years, but it's been going on now for a little while.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up because there are people who wanted careers in HR. And I think it's important for us to differentiate HR versus from what we do. Unfortunately, the market from the 1930s and 40s has put talent acquisition, talent access under the same functional sort of direction as HR, and one's left side of the brain, one's right side of the brain, right? HR, generally speaking, is taking care of the people inside the organization. Talent access is an aggressive, invasive, strategic way to be a phenomenal communicator, interact with high-level executives, and then bring them in and make that relationship happen. So if you're interested in building companies, interacting with people, getting inside the brains of the architects of building those companies and what we're trying to get done, search is a very interesting career for people.
No, I couldn't agree more, Joe. And it's one of the things that's been interesting for me and what our team does is that as we bring in recruiters into our business, they sometimes come in with this idea that, if I'm going to be effective on the talent access side, I have to know everything about the organizations I serve in terms of the functionality and the scope and everything else. And the more you know, the better, clearly. But quite honestly, what I've seen, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, is that the communication skills that these people have and that they develop while they're doing what we do is the key for your clients. The client needs to be and wants to be challenged around really what role do people play? What direction is the organization taking? And how do these individuals that they need to bring into the company, how are they going to propel them to achieve that business plan on time or even ahead of time. And you're in the space of a lot of very technical backgrounds that you're recruiting for. Our firm is as well to a certain degree, but whether it's really technical or more commercial and marketing and kind of some of the sexy stuff, it's the questions that you're asking and then listening and really helping organizations and people mutually make great decisions about each other. And quite frankly, if you're an outstanding communicator, you can do that pretty naturally. Mm-hmm. But maybe talk a little bit, Joe, about the technical component of some of the things that you guys do.
Yeah, I think industry experience gives you a leg up in the first 3 months, right? Certainly like we're in health tech, med tech, life sciences, understanding all that is most definitely an advantage in those first 90 days because you don't have to recruit a certain part of your brain, and you can leave that alone to rest while you're learning the rest of the stuff, right? So, however, when you start to extrapolate that out to month 10, 11, 12, there's no difference at all. In fact, there could be an argument made that there's a hindrance because you've got an unconscious bias as to what you should pursue and what you shouldn't pursue. But you brought up some really interesting points, Mike, is the people who do really well in search are those people who can see patterns emerge and can deal with the abstract and are great communicators. And I don't mean just the written word. So in fact, I mean the spoken word. I do mean the written word, because we live in a world today that your phone isn't your first go-to move. You've got text, you've got web pages, you've got email, you've got in-mail on LinkedIn. So your ability to influence people to make decisions, and I think that's what we do, is the great search professionals and the great search firms never talk people into things. What they do in a very elegant way and a very sort of disciplined way, shepherd people through a decision-making process. And I mean that from a candidate side, and I also mean that from the client side. Is like, this is, you could be on our firm and your firm for your first year, and you're actually a consigliere of sorts, because our firm has made more than 7,000 placements. Protus, I'm sure, right along those lines. Is there's not much I haven't seen in the sort of courting process and sort of the consummation, and then eventually the exit from an organization. And you learn so many things, and for the most part, most people have only made moves 3 or 4 times in their whole career. And that goes for the CEO too. Mm-hmm. So he or she has got very little experience and rely on us for that coaching.
I think that the shepherding of the process is something that people don't really get. So I love that you brought that up. That, this headhunter label or anything else, doing transactions in our business happens all the time. And there are firms out there that are set up to do it that way, and I'm not saying that they're necessarily wrong. That's not how, we go about doing the business. That also creates this burnout. So that's why you see people come in and out of search because either they're transitioning or they're not really committed to it. But when you have that mentality of, my interest is to help you make a really good decision, whether you're the client, whether you're the candidate, and that's it, period. I'm going to ask you questions that don't have a right or wrong answer to them. I'm just going to get you to think about your career. I'm going to get you to think about your company. I'm going to listen. I'm going to portray back some scenarios for you and say, here's what I heard. Is that really what you're trying to get done? Yes, no, maybe. Let's do some pivots and some shifts. But the shepherding of the process for me is what makes what we do it's fun. And it never, ever gets boring. Again, 32 years, 23 years. It is never boring because you're talking to individuals, whether it's even the same person you talked to 6 months or 6 years ago. Some things have changed in their lives. Some things have changed in those companies, and it's fresh and it's fun if that's your mentality, that I'm going to shepherd these individuals and companies through a process. So
yeah, and what we look for, as I always use this term, truer yeses and truer nos, right? So we challenge people, and if you're interested in human psychology, if you're interested in business, if you have always had a gift of being able to look at patterns emerge and then be less wrong about the future than most people, this is a really interesting business. And it's also not for the faint of heart, right? The level of organization, the level of physical, mental, and spiritual endurance that's required.
Yeah.
You know, after a while, you get these emotional calluses to things, but you also, one of the things that is never lost on me over the years is everybody who enters search in the right organization has become a profoundly better person, because you're interacting with hundreds of new people a week. You're learning to influence people and be influenced where you never meet these people. But the number of people you meet and have meaningful relationships with, it's not a social media platform where it's super, you know, topical and superficial potentially. It's, you get deep into people's lives,
absolutely.
and then there's a responsibility that goes with that. And then there's this, you're as vested in that person's future, more so I find with the great recruiters, than you are in having a transaction.
No, absolutely, and again, that's one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed is the freshness of every single day, and not just every single day, but every single conversation, one conversation to the next. So, Joe, for people that are, you know, maybe thinking about a career in talent access, what advice would you give them in terms of how to assess the organizations that they may be speaking to that are established and they're looking to bring on additional talent? How would you help individuals assess talent access firms that may or may not be right for them?
Yeah, so the first thing I would want to understand is, so let's look at this. Whenever, I'm going to take my own medicine. Mm-hmm. Whenever we share opportunities with the markets that we deal with, we talk about these 4 pillars all the time, and I need to stay true to that. So we say, look at 4 things. One is the market. Independent of the service or the product you make, is the market healthy that the solution or product you're providing have a future to it? So that's one. The second one is, okay, tell me about your product or service and how it maps to that market. And then third, tell me about the leadership, right? Tell me about the leadership. So race, horse, jockey, and then finally mission.
Yeah.
The fourth one is, why do you show up every day? So let's unwind that for a second. When you look at the market, I know we're moving into the golden age of recruiting. We're coming out of this pandemic. HR right now, which historically has been responsible for taking care of people internally and externally, is now going to be justifiably hyper-focused on the current employees of the company. Environmental health and safety issues, the restructuring of the workforce, full-time employees versus contractors, that whole world of work. And speed to market with your product or service is going to be critical. And then another thing, Mike, is there's this divergence of the construct of companies today. What most companies do has not changed. How they do it is changing dramatically. So you're going to have this divergence of those who are doing it the right way and those that are doing it the old way. And so with that, that's a brand new workforce or an upskilling of your current workforce. Somebody's got to find those people.
Yeah.
So the market looks really good. Yeah. Now, the company that you're going to work for, let's just say, let's look at what market are you in? Are you in markets that historically have done extraordinarily well? Are they on the leading edge of investments? Is venture capital coming into that? Is private equity money coming into that? Is SPAC money, the new product on Wall Street, coming into that? Where are the investment dollars coming in? Because if the investment dollars coming in are robust, that means that they're going to care less about spending that money on getting the right people and really fixating about bringing the people in the force multipliers. You have to pay headhunters to do that. And then the leadership. Let's go look at the leaders. How long have they been in the industry? Why are they in the industry? Are they leaders in the industry? Are they the voices of the industry?
Right.
Yeah? And then finally, mission. Most people get into headhunting. Top 3 is because you can make a lot of money at it.
Right.
A lot. We're not going to index on money on this conversation. We are going to say, though, that in the top firms, 2 years in, you're north of $150,000. 5 years in, you're north of $250,000 or more. We've got individuals in our firm that make $750,000 a year that are not partners or not owners because they are high performers, right? But your mission shouldn't be money when you get into this. Your mission should be, you care about solving complex problems, you care about people, right? But you don't You don't die for them, but you care about people from the sense of how can I influence and potentially make it better for them? And if I do a good job at that, the outcome is money. So, those are the 4 pillars that I look at in regards to what you should be evaluating as you look at a career in search.
That's incredible. So, just taking what you just said gives unbelievable direction to people that are currently looking to get into talent access, or may, think about this conversation and go, wait a minute, maybe I should slow down and think about it. So in addition to everything that you just said, the component of, that philosophy that firm has, not just, hey, here's what we're going to do, but understanding how have they been engaging the markets that they serve. And you just said it well, I won't repeat it, but the vision of where they want to go definitely is important, but asking some outstanding questions about where have your partnerships been? What do they look like? And I would listen for, are they long-term partnerships? I don't mean 3 to 6 months. I mean, 5, 10, 15, 20 years over, multiple CEOs, over multiple heads of talent. Truly, is your organization so deep, or are these organizations so deep into the performance of the companies that they're serving that they get to continue to do business regardless of what the leadership regime looks like? I think that's really important as well. And how are they doing that? Are they doing it because we're just the cheapest game in town? It's probably unlikely that you have a relationship that long because you're the cheapest game in town. Somebody's going to undercut you on price.
Race to the bottom always.
Ask very clear and direct questions about what is your value prop. Do you have a unique methodology? And that's the piece that I'd like to just hone in on for a moment, because the transitional person that historically got into search for a little bit because they were in some level of transition and they've got a Rolodex. I'm VP, C-level, whatever, and I know a good amount of people. That doesn't stand the test of time. And asking organizations what their methodology is when they engage, how do you truly separate yourself from the noise so you don't have to be the lowest price game in town? And then when the search gets tough, because most of them get tough.
All of them do. We never get easy searches.
How do you work through that dynamic when your quote unquote Rolodex and the small circle of influence that you have, goes away or isn't appropriate for this particular search? What do you do? How do you work through that? And having a clear methodology that gets you through that component, those are the firms that I think people should take a look at potentially joining. And also I think that those are the firms that client companies should be hiring.
Yeah, and that you bring up a great point, Mike, is when you attack a search, this is an interview question that I would ask if I was interviewing at a search firm. As you attack a search, tell me about the resources that you can direct at that search. And historically, search firms, and unfortunately, still a majority of them, more than 50%, still are, you're either an admin person answering a phone, or you're a search consultant sitting on the desk, or you're the owner. That's it. Your progressive firms today are going to have a sort of multivariable resource pool to pull from as you go after this. Is you will have admin people, you will have ops people, you will have research teams, you will have entire media companies that are behind you using the most progressive tool of all time, reaching and communicating at scale. You will have partners, you will have search consultants, you will have search operations teams. Mm-hmm. So, of course, that might be the top 1 percentile of search firms in the world. Nonetheless, it's worth asking the question so you know what you're getting into. I'm not saying that a 3-desk office is wrong. I'm saying that you need to know what you're walking into so you know that when you hit that search, is that going to take you 45 days because it's only you by yourself? Nothing wrong with that, but managing expectations and or career opportunities. Because you can come into search and in 3 years, you can be doing something entirely different in some search firms and be happy as heck.
No, I completely agree. And assessing search firms, talent access firms, is no different than assessing an organization in your industry, whatever your industry may be today, if it's not talent access and search. And there is a place for everyone. That's the beauty of what we get to do and our teams get to do every day, is slowing down and listening to those scorecards of the candidates on the personal, professional, and financial side, and truly listening to them and not going, oh, that's a good scorecard or that's a bad scorecard. It's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with us. It's getting the person to make sure that they know what their decision criteria are. How are you and your family making decisions about whether you stay where you are? Maybe where you are is outstanding, and there's this one little thing that's bugging you. Well, maybe there are going to be 2 or 3 or 4 little things bugging you if you go to the next place. So having a talent access partner that can help walk you through that process so you identify it for yourself, and then doing the same thing on the company side of really what type of talent is going to be successful with you and why and where are you going. What you just described is exactly right. Whether it's a smaller shop on the talent access side that's going to stay small and they know why. Here's why I'm staying small. Here's why I want to be 1 or 2 people or 3 people. Or here's why I'm going to scale my business and have all of those resources or some of those resources, or whatever the blend may be. To me, it is helping those individuals and those companies just get real with themselves and identify, here's who I am, here's who I've been, here's who I am today, here's where I'm going, honestly, not because, ooh, that sounds like it's cool, but I have no freaking idea how to get there. So no, I love what you said there. That's really cool.
One of the things too, I think would be helpful and certainly have merit to it is explain to people what their first year in search is likely going to be. So, and what it is not. Yeah. I think that's important. And regardless whether you're 3 years out of university or didn't go to university, but in your earlier years in your career, or even later years, like you and I have known individuals have gone through 30-year careers and retired and be like, I want to leverage my love for this business, and by the way, all the people I know, and I want to go off and make a couple $100,000 a year and still revolve around this beautiful industry I love, but I got forced out because of retirement. So when we look at those two things, the pathways are not much different. Your first 3 months in search, you should just be coachable. And that's what I say. That's the number one answer I give when people say, Joe, what is it that's going to make me successful? Well, we test for intelligence all the time in our organization. We test for the big 5 on the personality side of things. We then, look for evidence of success and the ability you pointed out earlier to have persevered through tremendous adversity in your life. Yeah, your first 3 months, 90 days, is we want you to prove that you're coachable. You may not make a placement in your first 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. In fact, one of my first employees, Lauren Yaffe, back in 1992, didn't make a placement for his first year, and we believed in him. And sure enough, he went on to bill $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year. Right. A very unique cat. I don't say I want all my people to be like that, but it's an example. But your first 90 days, be coachable. Your second 90 days, be a major problem solver, right? I want to see that you can solve problems. And then your third 90 days, what I want to see is the initiative, the demonstration of innovative thought, the ability to execute on the plan, and then never, ever come back to me with an excuse, right? And so those are the things. And also what's changed in our world, Mike, and then I want to throw it over to you, is search has changed a lot from the profession side. It used to be search firms would figure out how little could they get away with paying you to sit at a desk with a phone taped to your head and drool into the phone for 100 calls a day and be on the phone for 4 hours. Those days are over, right? Now, there are firms, and our firm is one of them, and I know your firm is, that these are large base salaries in contextual terms, great variables, and tied to performance. Everything is always tied to performance. But our philosophy is, get me best athlete in the foxhole with me, because I'm going to have to spend less time repeating myself. I'm going to have somebody who's going to probably come to the table with alternative solutions after they learn the way that we did it. That might even be better than what we do. And I know sooner than later, they're going to be able to execute by their own skills of deduction and intelligence to be off on their own, creating value for our clients and themselves, and then I can go get another one, bring them in and plug them in.
Yeah. No, and all of that is, totally accurate. You've been living this for a long time. Ours is not a lot different. The analogy that we use, and it's a really simple one, is those first 90 days, we want you to take that strategic hat off. Even if you're the most strategic cat in the world, take that strategic hat off, put it in the desk drawer. Don't throw it out. We're gonna pull it out at some point in time, but you've got to be able to put that away and forget that you've got this unbelievable Rolodex and you can call these people. You have to slow down and understand the business of talent access, which goes back to your coachability piece. And what are the inner workings? What are the true inner workings of the organization that you just joined? You know, you understood a value prop in the interview process where you wouldn't have joined the firm, whoever it is, our firm, your firm, or another one. So there was something that you bought into. Now live it every day for those first 90 days. Understand it. Be able to speak to it passionately and intelligently, not because you're trying to sell, but because you're behind it. And then that passion, that clarity, that comes out as you're talking to people. People are listening to you as much as you're listening to them. So in those first 90 days, really probably 6 months for us, we ask them to take that strategic hat off and leave it off. And we'll get to a point where we want you to bring it back out and utilize it in your high-level interactions with the clients, no doubt about it. But you've got to understand that component of what really makes you and the firm different. And then, the first year in our business, plan on it being pretty damn tough. I mean, there are the outliers that have success quickly. There definitely are, but plan on it being tough, not because you're not performing, but in your example of 1 year without a placement, we had another individual that was a long-term. Bill Dawson was with us forever and just killed it. He went 7 months without anything. But why did those two individuals, why were they long-term successful? Because the 7 months in the year wasn't about them doing things the wrong way and screwing it up. It was about them putting one step in front of the other and really understanding the process. That's why they both took off after 7 months in a year. From an attribute perspective for us, we're looking for a couple things. We're looking for people. They don't have to score off the charts on super, out of this world wattage of intelligence. We want people to be bright. They don't have to be, crazy IQs. The work ethic, because you are working hard for the people that you serve. And in our business, you get to serve a client company. You get to serve the candidates, all of them, not just the ones that you place, but every single one that you touch. Mm-hmm. And, depending on the structure of the firm that you join, you're serving your internal team members as well. So that's the other thing that we look for, is we look for a positive attitude and a team mentality. Whether they played a sport or they were part of a team in some form or fashion, we like to see that. Because the way that we've structured our firm in particular is that we do have a lot of those, different functional breakdowns that you mentioned earlier. And they're not just, they're definitely not departments. So it's not these siloed groups. It is a team that comes together in unison for every single client that we have. And you get to work with different members of those ops teams, marketing teams, research teams, depending on the search. So if you don't have a team mentality, you're going to get crazy frustrated, at least in our structure, because the team is put together to deliver for a client a specific business need that's critical to them. So year one is a culmination of all of those things for us.
Yeah, and the thing that is interesting to remember too is this is a career. So when you come in, it's really, for those who played sports, I remember when I first started taking up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I had been a very accomplished martial artist in a number of other styles. I got on that mat as a white belt, and I was watching these purple belts and brown belts and black belts just doing all kinds of crazy things. And then I get on there, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm this badass in all these other styles, and I'm just like a kid here. And it's easy to get frustrated. It's easy to watch these effortless performances going on in the desk next to you or the office next to you, and these unbelievable words and smoothness and the transitions in and out as you coach organizations and their people through their decision-making process. So just take it easy on yourself the first year.
I love that for those 20, 25, 30-year pros that have been killing it in industry, and they come into our business, and they're going to feel like they're speaking a different language for a period of time. If you bring that knowledge base that you have And don't worry about being perfect right out of the gate. Don't worry about relying on your Rolodex and your own circle of influence, but you understand and learn the inner workings of the talent access space that you just described. Those individuals with that much experience now become ridiculously successful and attractive to the client pool and to the candidate pool, because candidates and clients both, they want to be talking to consultants that bring all of that juice, but understanding that first period of time, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, it is going to be a learning process. You're not just going to jump into it. But I've seen people on both sides of that equation, as I know you have, that have come in and they go, wow, this is amazing. I get to influence so many organizations, and they just crush it. And others that go, how come I'm not getting this right now? And they get a little frustrated.
That's right. You know, it's you're everything you're great at today, you once sucked at, and I remind people of that all the time. So you had to start somewhere. Well, I think this was a good download for a career in search, how to potentially vet out a search firm, who does well in search. I don't want to cover who doesn't do well in search. That doesn't add any constructiveness to the conversation. And let's finish off with compensation, because while we all should go to work as compensation as part of a component we explore, and it is important. Historically, and you can speak from the industry because you're familiar with the industry, and also as an example of a firm like yours, what are the earnings ranges, Mike?
Yeah, and I'll give you a quick story before I get to your question. Is that when I made the decision, I can just speak for myself on this one. When I made the decision, comp was a part of it. It definitely was, in the context that I had been in corporate America. I was learning a lot. I mean, I really was. I was enjoying it. I was fortunate to be in some good organizations with some great mentors. But one of the pieces that I didn't like is that there was always a cap on every single role. And it didn't matter how highly you performed or what your rating on your performance review was or any of those things. Your comp was maybe going to take this little bump or that little bump. And for me, that was frustrating. What has been great about search from day one to today is that if I don't like what I'm making, I go home, I look in the mirror, and I say, you fix that. You fix it. You don't like it, you fix it. And our industry allows you to do that. To me, that is one of the coolest things that our industry provides. I really like that component of it. But to answer more specifically, again, I'll start with, I left corporate America making decent money. Not great money, decent money. And money that I deserved to make for the role that I was in. I 4X'd in year one. Not normal, not a normal expectation, but a reality. And making high 6, low 7 figures in our industry for those that really crush it and take all of the principles that we just talked about and really have the candidate in mind and the client in mind and are building something over time and building their reputation. That's what the top performers in our industry make. They do.
Yeah. And so I'll give you our side as well, and then I'll take us out. So your first year, if you get selected by a top firm, you probably are looking at a minimum of 80,000, most likely about 110,000. In your second year, to Mike's point, I've had individuals jump to 250,000 as a norm almost. And then from there, after your second or third year, a couple things happen. You either flatten out and make a nice living at 200,000 to 300,000, or as you have people, and I've been fortunate enough in my career to have people who have jumped beyond $500,000 to $750,000, and not owners, not partners. And probably next year we'll have my first 7-figure young person who earns it. And
that's exciting.
Yeah, and so while money isn't everything, it is a big component. Sure. Because it gives you freedom, it gives you a way to keep score on what you're doing is meaningful, because as you pointed out, you could have somebody in corporate America knocking the cover off the ball, yet they're constrained by those limits regardless. So, I always believe in a pay-per-performance lifestyle. So, well, I'm glad we got to touch on this stuff today, Mike.
I am as well. I think, it's an industry that is, the evolution of the perception has changed dramatically, and it's changed because you've got a number of outstanding firms out there doing business in what I would say is the right way. It's a consultative way. It has the client and the candidate in mind, not their own individual performance or profitability, which obviously is important to continue to add the tools and various other components. But I'm proud of how the industry has evolved to this point. And to your point, and you made the point earlier, Joe, is that what's in front of us from an industry standpoint is really, really exciting. Just seeing in the last few months what's happening as we kind of get on the other side of the pandemic, organizations are very conscious about the environmental health and safety. Those searches are coming left and right. And slowly, I'm seeing that talent acquisition and HR are not just becoming a little more separated, but organizations are seeing that HR has other things to do that are absolutely critical to our people. And we're having a people conversation here today. So I just think the timing of our industry and what's going on and what will continue to go on is beyond exciting.
Yeah. So look, if you want to write your own ticket, if you want to architect everything that happens to you, not just some things that happen to you, and if you like to get paid for performance, recommendation is explore the world of search. To Mike's point, it's no longer and I love the word headhunter, it's no longer a headhunter or a flesh peddler business. There are headhunters that sit on boards, advisory boards, give keynotes, get selected to be part of public board companies. So if you want to influence the structure of an organization, influence maybe thousands of people's lives, and make a wonderful living for you and or your family, consider search. So I'm Joe Mullings from 160 Studios. Be well.